Okay, Ricky here from Watermelon Games, and it's time for yet another Dev Diary. I'm sitting here with an unexpected guest. We will soon be joined by our art director, Xandra van Antwerpen, because we are going to talk about the changes, how we went from this and then empty this. And by doing these kinds of changes, the graphics have obviously evolved into something new. So, without further ado, let's talk some graphics. Alright, so, with developing a game such as Robot Split, how is like a word process in doing graphics?
That's a good question. Well, the process mostly starts with concepts, but that really depends on what levels I'm working on. Now we did the demo, and I sketched some levels to have the general flow of it worked out, and a bit of the color schemes. When I'm done with the sketch, I mostly start with the rough outlining and checking up with you and Eric if it's okay. If you say yes, it's okay. Then starts the coloring, and after that mostly finishing the shading, the lighting. Animations aren't yet in it, but that would come afterwards. And then checking and checking and checking until everyone's satisfied.
Yeah, but it's a bit different though, because there was already a lot of graphics done when you took over, so it's more of a rework, kind of.
Well, yeah, but the demo levels barely existed. Well, the level design existed, but mostly everything was really grey. And when I checked up on you guys, you wanted something kind of completely different. So then I mostly took the elements that were still usable, which weren't that many. But mostly they were. And then I checked, like, the level design went like that, so I thought, maybe we can incorporate this or this. But mostly the work process is the same, mostly sketching, coloring, color pick, like make a schedule and work it out.
Yep. Alright, so if we're going to connect to a bit of the first question, then the differences between the current graphics, so to speak, and the old one, what's the biggest differences?
The biggest differences was the color schemes, I would say. The previous ones were mostly grey, red, black mostly. And obviously Robot Split is a robot-inspired game. But in my opinion that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be any contrast. Obviously the later levels will be darker, which they already were. But in a different way. There weren't much details in it. The backgrounds were, just easily made. The tiles too, and there will be more animations in it. And the whole feeling of Earth, which is the outside world, where Styx lives, is much more colorful to really accentuate the graphical differences of the world, the feelings. The music will also be different, I think, at least. So the whole mood will be different, the whole game.
Yeah, and it enhances so by using the color scheme and the differences then between Earth and Hell, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's the main difference in graphics as well. That's the most work, so to speak. Yeah. Okay, so if we're talking about a game such as Robot Split, the same way we talked about it in the design diary, we talked about everyone has played Mario, everyone has played different kinds of puzzle platformers, or at least seen them. There's been other games as well. What is the main challenges of making graphics for such a game, such as Robot Split then?
Well, personally, the main issue for me was I came into the project later, so I wasn't involved in the concept stages of the whole idea. Also being the only graphic artist makes it hard because it's a lot of workload for such a game. But the main difficulties, bringing variety to the levels, although it still has to have the same theme. Like, you are in hell, the first color you think of is red, but how do you make a variety in backgrounds, tiles, so it doesn't become all of the same, like a never-ending loop with just different level designs. I think that's the hardest part. And also, being a bit different. Of course it's a retro game, but that does not mean that we have to have an 8-bit color scheme, or 16-bit even. Robot Split isn't. I don't even know how many colors are used. But I think that's the hardest part.
So if we talk about connecting back then to you saying that it's a lot of work for one person, what is it, like what goes into it, except for like sketching, concepting, what goes into the workload of making such a game such as Robot Split?
Well, for me it is really hard because creativity mostly flows in the evening hours, which is when I'm not at the office. So most of the time I sit at home working, because then I get ideas, and the next day you really have to push ideas out, like, oh, what am I going to do with this, what am I going to do with that, and then you put work into something, and then you look at it back like a month later, like, oh, what have I done? I have to redo this, I have to redo that. So I think the hardest part of it all is finding creativity for every single thing you do, because if you're completely uninspired and you make something, it'll show in your work. It's obvious. If you make a drawing and you're like, oh, I have to draw something, don't have any idea what I'm doing, but let's just draw, it'll make such a big difference to when you do actually have inspiration to draw something.
Okay, so as a last question then, if we look at the game now, it has in-game graphics and it also has video graphics, and also in some other kinds of way, but connected to the video graphics. But there are two different styles, which wasn't there after the 10-week project and what you've seen from earlier alpha trailers and stuff like that. It's differed a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the cutscenes before I changed them were really stiff. Well, they're pixel obviously, so they're really cubic. But it wasn't really life in them, in my opinion. So I decided to mix it a bit up with a completely different style that you barely see in the game. You see it in the text boxes of Doug or Six or whoever, kinda. But I went for a more hand-drawn style. Well, I personally really like it, but I also thought it would suit it well to have like a bit of fresh air, a reward after a level, more variety really, that you don't constantly watch something that's just static, so to say. That was mostly my reasoning, and you guys liked it, so I went with it.
Yeah. You talked about two new characters here, Doug and Six. Which we just previously shown in some concepts that popped up on the Facebook and the Twitter. Those are in-game in that other style, but when they're in a playable version, they're pixelated in graphics. So they appear in two different shapes, just the same as the graphics.
Yeah.
Already from the concept, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I made the concept, and I checked up with you guys, like, do you like it? Do you don't? And I thought, I don't really want to mix too much of one style with the other, so then I just incorporated Doug and Six then in a pixel graphic style, so it would suit the rest of the game, so it wouldn't look all like, okay, why is this so different than the rest, so to say. So yeah, I really like concepting in, well, a bit of a loose, cartoonish art style, so to say. Pixels just take a lot of time. If you want to do it really well, you have pieces on the internet that take like over hundreds of hours. And they are amazing. So I mostly loosely make things, and that's also what that style is based on, my own liking, so to say.
Yeah. So that was all for graphics, and we will be updating you with it. You can send us questions, of course, and keep checking the Facebook. And next time we will talk about some writing and how to develop information in different variations of the game while having still the RoboSplit core. So thank you, Xander.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And until next time, the Team Watermelon Games ask you to keep yourself updated via our Facebook and our Twitter, and that's about it.
Yeah, don't forget to check the poster. Bye.